Welcome to the MoxStars podcast, episode 2. I am one of your hosts, Jordan Garcia, and I'm joined with two of my esteemed colleagues, Evan Kunai.
Yo.
Chris Ritter.
What it do?
Before we go any further, guys, you can find any of our socials, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, all down below. Like, subscribe, follow us on this pretty awesome Magic journey. Our topic today is going to be a good one. I think it's an ever-growing one. Our overarching topic is going to be STAX.
I love it.
Kind of how it pertains to the meta game, whether you're in casual, whether you're in competitive, what... I feel like we're seeing a lot more of it, so I think it's a good topic right now. Before we go too deep, our little intro topic is going to be, what do we think the most underrated STAX piece is? I'm going to throw it over to Chris here because, oh, God, do I love your choice. Chris, what is the most underrated STAX piece in your opinion?
In my opinion, the most underrated STAX piece is the white creature Kataki War's Wage. One white, one colorless. During each player's upkeep. Let me actually just read the card.
It's funny how the two white pips would make it near unplayable, but the fact that it's only one white pip and a colorless makes it completely playable.
It's almost
easy to splash for if you need it.
Too easy to cast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please.
So, two relevant things here. It's a legendary creature, and it's also a spirit. Relevant tribe. And the card text is, all artifacts have, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this artifact unless you pay 1. What an amazing STAX piece.
It's unreal. Every time I see it hit the battlefield, I'm just like, oh, okay, so my mana rocks are dead or they're dead.
Yep, your mana rocks have to pay for themselves or they're off the board.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Like I said, it doesn't cost 2 white pips, and
this card is absolutely backbreaking, and I hate because, like I said, I'm a greedy ass player, right? So,
your treasures can't pay for themselves. That's for sure.
Oh God, it just hurts.
Cancel out that smothering tithe.
Artifact lands just have to get sacrificed. It's brutal. It's a legendary creature which just lets you tutor for Captain Sisay, a few different things.
Search for glory.
Shout out. Great mono white card. If you're not playing it, you're crazy.
I am constantly trying to find ways to upgrade my deck with enough legendaries or snow permanents to make it viable.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't take a lot. There are some shockingly good legendaries in these colors that, even splashing white might make it worth it.
It's the best splash color.
It's great. I think white is a great splash color, and
it's the best splash color right now.
I agree. Big agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say red, but red is actually firmly cemented itself as not a splash color anymore.
No, red is it can run solo, it can run with something else, but cards are always running with red. Red is not running with cards.
What's crazy is in the Grixis Turbo thing, it feels like blue is fading more and more into the background.
Yeah, right now I would say for me, I think white is the second strongest color in Magic right now.
Oof.
I'm going to agree with you. And no, I'm going to disagree.
You're going to disagree.
Hit him.
I think white is the strongest color in Magic.
Hit him.
Yeah, the combination of white and colorless.
In our pod, I've been playing mono white, and I've been doing pretty well.
You have been.
So good to see.
It's crazy just to see, there aren't many times, even when I was playing in mid or low or battle cruiser, that I lost to a Voltron deck. But I've lost to Catilda,
Too many
Voltron
times.
deck,
Too many
at
times.
a high power table before. It's
we're ever playing gas.
Yeah, we're playing gas, and Catilda comes out of nowhere and just develops this value engine and just this accumulating value. That's one thing that people don't run enough of is removal for artifacts and enchant. Well, not even artifacts. People run that removal, but removal for enchantments.
Enchantments have gone just for free, so long.
Oh, it hits the board?
It's just skate free.
I guess it's sitting there for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I guess it just lives there. That Ristic Study's never going away.
It's so much to ask for an EDH player to run removal at all, let alone enchantment removal.
Right.
Oh, I'm firmly of the camp of run at least 10 pieces of removal on your deck.
It's literally why my outlet for going for Sakama is amazing. Even if I can't get to that infinite loop, it's he still has the ability to remove enchantments.
Talking about
God.
Talking about mono white and enchantment removal, Heliod's Intervention. Can we put it in every white deck, guys? Can we just have that access? It is so good. It is so flexible, and it is necessary for just the the insanity that is the game today with the artifacts and the enchantments that just build up and just sit there all game.
You know, and it's at instant speed.
Instant speed.
Yeah,
I
that's the big
have
thing.
cashed it for the gain that much life for double that X life. I've done that more than once.
Yes.
It has kept me in a game. It has bought me another.
It's
turn.
relevant text.
You're playing
It is-
Adnons.
yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah,
like
if you're playing Adnons, boom. Even if you're just getting like focused and you're getting beat out of the game, you're like, I'm about to kind of get everything together, but I'm at 12 life, so it makes it really hairy.
Yeah,
It's
there are a
like-
lot of times when like you're playing Adnons or you're like in those colors and there's someone sitting across you playing STAX. And like that's why we sit here and it's like literally the light versus dark, you know, whatever however you want to see it. It's like that is what's going on in the meta right now, like the meta game. It's like
Yeah,
it's
more and
STAX
more.
versus gas.
Yeah, and because of that, more and more like combat is becoming kind of back into focus, I would say. At
Yeah.
least, you know, in more of a competitive sense. Obviously, you know, casual decks, you know, they be swinging creatures, nothing wrong with that. But like that we're definitely seeing because STAX is becoming more prevalent that we're absolutely seeing like people are just dying to commander damage again, like a
Yep.
lot more regularly.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
kind of
they-
crazy.
They're just they've been printed. They've been out there for a long time. There haven't been many STAX pieces printed like recently that make many lists. But like you know, Stony Silence is there. It's like you can really
That's not even a recent card. That
Yeah,
is
it's old.
Ravnica.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
old now. So
Well, Ivan, this actually is the topic we're
they've
talking
always
about.
been there. Yeah, sorry.
What would be your most underrated STAX piece as you're listing
Yeah.
off STAX pieces?
It's funny that I'm just like got to go back to the old days to find like one of my most underrated STAX pieces, and that's Titania's Song. Like I love it because I played a STAX Enchantress build with Zakama at Marchesa 2022, and I presented win cons. I promise you, the deck was good.
He tried to win.
I did try to win, and I literally in 4 out of the 5 games I presented a win con. So just the deck loses on the stack.
All right,
So-
would you like to read Titania's Song? Because
Yeah.
believe it or not, I don't think everybody knows this off the top
No,
of their head.
not everybody is going to know this one. It's kind of hard to find. And when I stumbled on it, my jaw hit the floor because all non-creature artifacts in play lose all of their usual abilities and become artifact creatures with toughness and power, both equal to their casting costs. If Titania's Song leaves play, artifacts return to normal just before the untap phase of the next turn. There's no other card in Magic that has that text. I looked for it. I was like, maybe they made a cycle of these enchantments so that, like, you know, maybe I could get that ability off more than once per game.
Kills treasures, kills mana crypts, chrome moxes.
Exactly. All the gas. Like, all those gas.
I mean, it
artifacts
also just anything above that, it just turns it off. Like
Yeah,
Soul
yeah.
Rings, Arcane Signets.
just turns it off. And
So
so,
it's
like,
essentially another Karn.
I basically swapped this out, and I, you know, looking back, I don't think I had the structure around artifacts because I was playing Stony Silence and Collector Oof, but I took Smothering Tithe out of the deck
Makes sense.
in place of this because I was just
Can't have both.
I was just full assed into like shutting artifacts down because I knew that was going to be like the matchup. And guess what deck went ahead and won the whole freaking tournament? It was a deck based around artifacts with Magda. So those treasures would not have survived. And like you get this out, you mana crypt, like land mana crypt and elvish like spirit guide into this. And that sounds like a Christmas hand, but it comes up. Like
I mean, you play it down a ramp, yeah.
Yep.
I will say that like Magda is uniquely positioned to get around this card. So maybe not the best example.
Oh, I would have stood in the way. I promise you. There's
but-
so many stacks.
Sure.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. you can believe that. And that is
I will believe it till the day I die.
Titania Song is a fun card, and it has been pretty impactful in some of the games we've played. I will definitely say.
Yeah, I think I've only cast it twice.
Well, that brings up my most underrated STAX piece, and that would be Counterbalance. I don't know, maybe in CDH it's actually become it's becoming a little more prevalent. Maybe it's a little memey in CDH, but
it's getting more respect.
it's getting
a
more
lot
respect. It's so good. I mean, maybe don't play this in like the most casual of tables. It depends on your meta, obviously. If you want to be counter,
Jordan, what does the card do?
Sorry, you're right. You're right. Counterbalance is a crazy card. When somebody casts a spell, when one of your opponents casts a spell, you reveal the top card of your library, and if they have matching converted mana costs, then you counter it. And it just happens every time. It's before Wizards started putting once per turn on cards. So the fact that it happens every time is brutal. It essentially acts as a stacks piece after you revealed the top card, and then nobody will cast that. And then they'll cast something else, you know. having a Sensei's top is just absolutely a terrible person move and really, really cool.
Yeah. Even I would say like having a ledger shredder on the battlefield the same time as this is actually kind of backbreaking too, because like the first spell you cast, you're gonna reveal, right? And if it matches, it's countered. But then you got to cast another spell, and you're gonna trigger the ledger shredder.
Yeah.
So now you've just moved the card.
Anything that's manipulating the top, that it gets worse and worse. Like even having heuristic studies, so that now that you're countering it or not, and then drawing a card, and then now you're resetting it and having a new option. It's a very backbreaking card. So I mean, make sure you're playing it in the right format, in the right meta. Chat with your table about it. But if you are, highly recommend it. Very effective. Very cool.
Yes. Incredibly powerful. There have been some games where I see it and I wish I was playing blue that day, because I would have, loved for that to happen to me.
Yeah.
It makes me want to brew. I don't know if this is a card that's on your guys' radar. Probably not, because it's a spirit, and that's why I know about it. Celestial Kirin.
No.
Are you familiar with this card? I believe it's 2 white, 2 colorless. It's a spirit. Whenever you cast a spirit or arcane spell, destroy all permanents with the same CMC.
Whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, destroy all permanents. Wow, with that spell's converted mana
Did this get a recent reprint, or it was
I think it's on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, and people are pretty hot on it.
OG
like
comic
at
book.
announcement, because
And it's legendary,
Stickers.
right?
It is a legendary creature.
Oh, that's a commander
Come
right
on.
there.
I
my
want
God.
you to build the 5-color tutor Sisei, but you just play mono white legendary creatures.
I've thought about it.
That would be so amazing.
No, honestly, I thought about it for spirits because I just want to play Kyodai.
Yeah.
And he has all 5 colors.
Yes, 5-color
So-
spirits, and then just do white. Oh, God, dude. I love it. Okay, getting a little derailed, but that is a great card. Sweet. Chris, you got one more card for me, don't you?
I do. Well, surprisingly, it's going to be another legendary spirit.
Let's
This
go.
one
Let's go.
is Hokori Dust Drinker.
Honestly, I did not realize it's legendary as well. That's wild.
Also legendary, has a secret layer printing as well.
That's
I've only seen like the original artwork played across from me maybe like one time, and I was just like, oh, that's a nasty card. And then I saw like the secret layer printing, and I was just like,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah, this is a pretty sweet card.
Okay, 2 white.
Like the artwork just brings it to life, I think, on this one.
For 2/2,
They were-
lands don't untap during their controller's untap step. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps the land they control. This is Winter Orb, right?
Yeah, it's
It's Winter Orb.
Yeah.
Yep, on a body.
Except you can't tap it to turn it off.
That's right. There are some pretty fun interactions too because it's a creature. If you're playing in mono white, you have access to such great creature removal at instant speed. You can go a couple rounds of breaking your opponent's backs by, cutting off their mana. And then, at your preceding opponent's end step, instant speed, either, kill it off because, you've done what you've had to do, or there's another spirit, if, for example, you're playing Spirit's Tribal, Rescuer Chingawa, that has flash. When it enters the battlefield, you return target spirit to its owner's hand.
Nice. Bounce a STAX feast back.
Yep, bounce
Love that.
stacks, untap, cast Hokori at the end of your turn after you've done what you need to do.
Absolutely disgusting.
It's a really good card.
Love that.
If you don't want to play Winter Orb and you have access to white mana, and it's just really good.
Yeah.
It's a good card.
Yeah.
For the listeners at home, we're not terrible people. This episode is the STAX episode. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, stacks is all a matter of perspective, and they can be played lightly. They can be played viciously. They can be played targeted, and they can also be played statically.
Well, also with stacks too, you don't have to learn to love it, but you do have to learn to live with it. You have to,
gonna be around.
life is suffering.
Yeah.
You just have to.
It is a part of the game.
It's part of the game.
Yeah, and I guess I have some stuff to say, but I guess that is going to be more like main topic. Okay, so Evan, you also have one more underrated stacks piece for me.
Yeah, if you want to pull it up, it is Damping Sphere. It is a 2-mana artifact.
So good.
Yeah, it's insane. So if your opponents would have land that taps for anything more than 1 mana,
Just any.
2 or more.
Your lands too.
Oh yeah, okay. So our lands too. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces a single colorless instead of any other type and amount. And then each player cast costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. And so it's literally just shuts down Storm.
Yeah, so
2 relevant abilities.
Yes, and it's a
incredibly
2
relevant.
colorless drop. That's it. 2 colorless artifact, and yeah, the second piece of just no, you're not storming off. Even like as a Grixis player, I'll
There's
cast
no
4
way.
spells in a turn, like because your Jessica's will get the mana croc down, get the tutor off. Like that is absolutely impossible when each one costs 1 more, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4.
Yeah, and I was looking at STAX pieces to put in like as an upgrade for Enchantress builds because I'm like, well, you can play artifacts too. Like this doesn't have an activated ability, so you can still play around oof and stuff like that. And then I realized that it also stops food chain. Completely puts food chain in its tracks. Like it is much more flexible than I think we've like given it credit for. I know it's been around for a while now from the original Dominaria.
And I mean, like everybody runs Ancient Tomb in their deck pretty much.
Yeah.
Like you see it a lot. I mean, City of Traders pops up every now and then.
Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx,
Nykthos,
Cabal,
Gaia's Cradles, Cabal Coffers,
Serra Sanctum.
Serra Sanctum. Yep.
Some great cards that we see pretty regularly.
We see it aggressively abused at times because of how powerful they are.
Yeah, like decks are built around Gaia's Cradle.
Yes.
Like, mono black Keurig decks, Tunnel, Cabal Coffers, like, so this is like, no, you're actually getting a single colorless mana. It is now your worst land.
Yeah, like when I'm
enjoy it.
When I'm playing and I'm like filtering lands, I'm actually searching for Gaia's Cradle and Serra Sanctum more than anything. Like there are times like I'm playing creature-based stacks too, and I'm actually using a Sylvan Scrying to go search for a Gaia's Cradle so that I can just keep going. Like it's crazy how you can actually put in cards surrounded around it, so you're literally guaranteed to run into it, or you increase your chances.
Well, I think we're all talking about staxing out land right now because Jordan's card also.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Cards, I should say.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's because, the effects are fairly similar in what they do, and Evan and I have just been talking about the last couple of weeks, is just how good / how backbreaking Back to Basics is as a card, and how Blood Moon is as a card.
If you've watched the Franken Sons championship game, which Jordan insisted that I do, and I'm so happy I did, you will watch one of the most perfectly played competitive Commander games.
Highly recommend.
And the moment that Back to Basics is played is absolutely devastating.
And just like this format in Magic in general, it gets greedier and greedier, and we get faster and faster, and that's why we're talking about stacks today because of that it gets more relevant. Part of that is just you cut basic lands for other cards, better cards. If you want to get more colors because you want to have better access to more of the color pie, that means you need more dual lands, not necessarily OGs, but anything that taps for 2. And so I find, like in my Grixis deck, I play 1 of each, and that's more than I would say 90% of CDH players because I plan to run into these cards, so I want at least 1 basic.
Yeah, and even if you're playing against someone who has made the mistake of not building around red and they've decided to splash red, a Blood Moon is still hurting them like most of the time. If red isn't their like primary focus, like they're sitting there starving for black or blue mana because everything is like a duel. Yeah,
if you can pretty much, and this is the same with all these stacks pieces we're going to be talking about today, is if you can find a way to keep your game plan on its tracks while landing one of these pieces that
you want to break parity.
You want to break parity. And I'm sure I have a whole episode in planned for breaking parity and stuff like that. But that is essentially, a good stacks deck is breaking parity on it. We're not trying to sit here for 3 hours. We want you to win the game. And I think that's the conversation that needs to be had for like stacks being in a lot of games moving forward. Is like, let's win the game. That's great. But also let's not vilify the stacks player because, everybody's playing Jeweled Lotuses and everybody's just kind of just vomiting out cards at such a high rate nowadays.
Right.
It's like, we kind of need somebody to be like, yo, that's not cool. Let's like slow down a little bit.
Let's slow down the game a little bit.
It's
Let's
good
all
to have
play our
one.
decks.
Yeah. Also the perspective, it's like the greediest cards, the most expensive card, are also the most expensive cards. So like you're looking at like the fastest mana bases out there, and they're incredibly expensive. You know? And it's like, okay, I don't have the money to play like this at a legal level or like at a legal tournament level, and so I am playing a $5 Stony Silence that is going to shut off the game.
Yeah, play.
And I'm going to build a strategy around that
100%.
to take it to the top. And so it's almost I'm not saying it's a class war, but it is like almost like saying I am playing budget Magic.
It's difficult at these tournaments that we're looking at where they don't allow any proxies. Like
Right. Yeah.
some of them have been cool, like some of the Eminence or the Monarch ones have been doing some really cool, working with the shops, getting some proxies printed off for like some of the reserve list cards, but it's not at every shop.
Yeah, those proxies are something that wouldn't be mistakable for what the card is. You will know it when you see it.
100%. Yeah.
But it is definitely not trying to be a Magic card either. So,
it's nice that they're
doing
those though.
Yeah, they do provide those, and they're doing them right. That's I do love those.
Yeah, I think that's just how pretty much all of the format should be run moving forward, if at all possible. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, we were talking, maybe competitive decks,
Yes.
Niv Mizzet. You could do a full mana base, 2 colors. I have no problem running split basics on 2 colors and like a command tower. You know, like it works pretty much all the time.
I mean, you're going to run, 8 fetches in there already?
Right, exactly.
So
So you're just curating whatever you need at the time. So why not just run all basics? And so we were talking about a pretty budget-focused Niv Mizzet deck that could compete because Curiosity's cheap. This is the Niv Mizzet Perun, obviously, that combos with Curiosity. Curiosity's cheap. Tandem Lookout's cheap. And then you play Black to Basics Blood Moon, both cheap cards. Back-breaking strategy with a 1-card win condition in your command zone. With also Niv is just an insane mid-range engine.
Yeah, when you're playing 2 colors like red blue exclusively, like these should be in there. Like there's no reason for you to like be running every possible fetch land or every possible like multicolored like land.
Yeah, I've been there. It just
play your basics.
Like I think it really starts to matter in 3 colors, and obviously look at your pips. Yes, Niv Mizzet is 3 blue, 3 red. That is hard, but how prevalent is treasures in red nowadays?
Well,
you can get there, right?
And you're gonna have the artifacts to fix. You're not gonna play
100%.
You're not gonna play your stacks to a non-bow like I do sometimes, but it's like you're not going to like intentionally do that to yourself.
And yeah, having artifacts is a great way of kind of getting around the back to basics Blood Moon. Even if like say you play a Blood Moon and you're shutting off some of your lands and not all of them. Yeah. Like you now have the artifacts to compensate.
Wouldn't that be funny if that's how you color fix yourself to get Niv out? Is like you play, you have a colorless land,
Build the deck, Evan. I challenge you to build the deck.
He's
if you are the player that you claim to be, who looks for undervalued strategies, you will build that deck.
I mean, I don't know if Niv Mizzet is undervalued, but
no,
that angle.
This angle.
Yeah,
you show
play
up
Gaia
to a
Sanitarium.
tournament.
Yeah, you play Gaia Rage Sanitarium, so you can like get the card draw and protect from Thassa's Oracle wins.
You're like, and
then
Cephalid Coliseum too.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're gonna play Blood Moon, and you're like, oh, this is actually color fixing me into like more red pips. I can play more red cards.
I love it. So yeah, let's get into the kind of the main discussion. That was some good cards. We're kind of talking about today STAX, and like we've already touched on it a little bit. It's just how it pertains to the game nowadays, like with how fast everything's getting in multiple formats. It kind of seems like some call it an evil, so I would say a necessary evil, but I don't even look at it like that. I think it is. I would an equalizer. I'm the greedy player at the table, and I'm the one saying that we should have a STAX player at the table.
Yeah, I think when you got a taste of STAX, you loved it. Like you saw why it was great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I think my dream pod is 2 mid-range decks, 1 turbo deck, 1 STAX deck for like peak interaction.
Yeah.
You got one.
It does actually sound like a good mix,
right?
Yeah,
yeah, like because the mid-range decks can still interact, slow down the turbo deck. If like you land a turn 2 Stony Silence, turn 1 Stony Silence, that turbo deck's gonna be set back a few turns, giving the mid-range, the combat damage kind of concepts a little more leverage.
Even Rule of Law makes it seem like it's more of a shootout than anything.
Yeah, I mean, Rule of Law I think has become king of the world in STAX. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
In my STAX deck, I don't play Rule of Law itself. I play Rule of Law effects.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one on a spirit, is there not?
Yeah, there's one staple to a spirit. There's actually a couple staple to spirits.
The whole concept is you can only cast 1 spell.
Yeah, and also the better version of that you want to land as soon as you can is Deafening Silence.
Deafening Silence, especially in like, your situation, you're like largely a creature deck. If you are, oh my God, is it amazing. A turn 1 Deafening Silence, and you just like creature. Like you just constantly keep developing this board while the decks that can't do that are just
Well, you're trying to break parity.
You're breaking
there you
parity.
go.
It's a
and the
great,
other version of
easy
that, you
way
can
to
do
break parity.
Ethersworn Canonist,
Yep,
which
for
is
artifacts.
a human. I believe,
and
right?
an artifact creature. It
Yep.
it gives you so many relevant card typings for 2 mana with a great effect. Highly recommend.
You know, it's not even true when you say that humans are underrated, but it doesn't seem like people are playing them enough. It's like,
play more humans, honestly.
Yeah, play more humans.
Human strategy.
Viable in every format.
Viable every format.
I'm seeing Winota pop up in the 99 more and more, which is just crazy.
Every format, every color combination, even.
Literally,
you know?
yeah.
Yep. And I like you're saying Winota just
Consider
pops up in
humans.
the 99, like in your Jetmir list. It's just like I'm
Yeah.
excited to play against it because like I want to see that Winota come out and just be the value engine that it was designed to be.
Yeah.
You know, when
I mean,
it's-
speaking of like breaking parity on stacks, Winota
Yes.
is number 1.
it dances around it, and it puts more stacks pieces on the
it
field.
develops. I mean, the deck
Yeah.
is the main deck is called Winota Snowball Stacks because it just you
Yep.
let one happen and it's just too late.
Yep, and then it's just I
Hope you
mean
have-
they're all indestructible and swinging at you too. So it's
Yep.
like any hope of like catching that creature attacking or blocking or whatever, you know, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
So
And so watching the deck being refined since the initial, it's a
Yep.
mean deck. It's placing.
What is the game plan? Just so we can lay it out.
So Winota is a 4-drop, 2 red and a white, and so you need to swing with non-human creatures to trigger her attack ability, so that you can reveal the top 6, grab the human creature, put it on the battlefield, tapped, attacking, indestructible. Right.
a very low
So-
bar to achieve.
Very low bar to achieve, turns out. So Winota pretty much tries to play a bunch of creatures before she lands, so that when she does land, you are already swinging and getting that value, right? You don't really ever want to like have to wait to untap.
Yeah, Signal Pest is a great card.
Signal Pest is crazy, and then Rograk is actually I've seen a lot in the deck. Memnite, Ornithopter, some of that stuff. You don't want to play a ton of those because your card quality starts dropping a little bit, but a few of those and some really good like 1-drop, 2-drops, and otherwise it's pretty much landing hate bears. So it's just kind of this nice refinement between hitting hate bears that can then swing to get you tons of card advantage because it triggers for each one. So if you have 3, you just are now looking at the top 18 cards, grabbing 3 cards onto the battlefield if you hit each one.
Yeah, and the important typing being those stacks pieces and those hate bears are humans.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not necessarily hate bears because you want to swing with non-human creatures, but yeah,
Right, but that's what you're getting off the Winota triggers.
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, you want to be like landing. It's essentially once the trigger's resolving, it's essentially uncounterable.
Right.
It is uncounterable. Like you can't interact. So if you grab a stacks piece from that trigger that then shuts somebody down, they're always going to be on like, oh wait, and you don't get an opportunity.
Yeah. Do you remember the game we lost to the Hermit Druid?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So we lost to turn to Hermit Druid, and I was sitting on a Containment Priest, but the Winota player sitting to the left of me, like in next in turn order, they had set up a Rule of Law, and I had set up a Deafening Silence. And so
We
I
thought
was
we were
like,
good.
I was like, yeah, we're good. I have another go around because Winota's going to get their attack trigger next turn, and I was holding a Containment Priest.
Right.
And that's when I was holding it for because that hits the battlefield. It gets completely wipes Winota, and then it also completely wipes the dude trying to Hermit Druid for the Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah,
because
I mean, it was a good play. He just won
Yeah.
the turn before
Yeah.
by neoforming out the Thoracle. and then
unbelievable.
responding to the trigger with the Hermit Druid activation, so you
Yeah.
didn't get an interaction point. It
Yeah,
was great.
exactly. That was like the line.
Learned something
so-
that day. It was the fastest tournament game we've ever played.
Yeah.
It was about 45 seconds. Anyway, yeah. So, Chris, you're pretty much, I would say, an avid stacks player. Would you say? Would you?
I mean, sure.
What's your
I'll take-
approach when you're building a deck? Like you're usually putting some form of control.
You know
Something
what?
to play
Yeah.
fair magic. What I mean.
Exactly. I want to play fair magic. I want to slow down the game. So stacks is not to me the point of the deck
Right.
ever. It's
You have a game plan.
Yeah, I have a game plan. My game plan is not a combo, and so it needs time to set up.
Right.
Or I
Stacks
need,
is a
or
perfect
I'm
way to
looking
do
to generate incremental value
Mhm.
in order to set up that win con. And stacks is the way to do that. And so, we've mentioned this deck before. My main deck right now is Catilda Dawnheart Mentor, 2 white, 1 colorless, and she is a spirit. Flying, lifelink, protection from vampires. Catilda Dawnhaunt Mentor's power and toughness are each equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits and/or enchantments. So,
It gets out of control so fast. I'm telling
Yeah, it really does. And so what this deck wants to do is there's a bunch of spirits with STAX effects stapled to their bodies. For example, Kataki War's Wage, which we talked about earlier.
Fantastic.
You have Hikori Dust Drinker, which we talked about earlier. Spirit of the Labyrinth, which each player can't draw more than one card each turn.
Really makes it hard to find answers to the STAX player.
Right. Yeah, and once that value starts accruing and like those creatures are buffing Catilda, that's why we're losing to this Voltron strategy, is because those pieces that are stopping us from playing the game or interacting or whatever, which is totally fair game, it's like we're losing because we can't answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You literally snuff us out, like, and it's a beautiful thing when it happens.
Yeah, I think actually exactly what you said, where it's not your game plan, is exactly like why the deck works so well. It's because like we have to use our interaction to deal with the STAX pieces that are shutting off our game plans rather than stopping your game plan. Whereas if STAX was your game plan, then it'd be pretty easy to pull the legs out from under you. Where like, yeah, I might remove 2 of your spirits and Catilda goes down 2 power, but you're still hitting me for seven in the air indestructible.
Yeah,
like,
minimum 7. Like,
minimum. Like,
yeah,
very,
we're
and I'm still staxed out. Like
Yep.
it's more than those 2 targets.
this deck doesn't even want to cast my commander. It's a Voltron deck to win.
Yes.
Like, that's the strategy to win. It doesn't even want to cast my commander till like turn 15.
Which is a great thing for like a stack or for like a Voltron commander, because the worst thing when you're relying on that so heavily is just it's removed a few times and you have to pay 4 extra on it, and you're like, well, that's not really going to happen anymore.
Yeah, there's been a few games where like you being more patient and waiting for just building your stacks like empire there, and then waiting to play Catilda has literally just won you the game.
Yeah, there's games that I win because I'm sitting behind Ghostly Prison or Windborn Muse or Sphere of Resistance or some combination of those. So I'm just out of combat because it costs you 10 per creature or whatever, something ridiculous like that. For me, that's the way. I mean, build stacks however you want it.
Yeah.
But this is, for me, a way that I think is fun for me to play stacks, still being interactive on the board, not just slowing down the game for the sake of slowing it down.
And you do have good removal. Like, you interact at really key points.
Yeah. I love instant speed removal.
And those enchantment-based removal, like
enchantment-based removal.
Perfect.
Exiling things until it leaves the battlefield, like on thin ice.
There's a great card, On Thin Ice. 1 white.
Comes up all the time.
Yeah. Enchant snow land you control, which is sometimes relevant that you're enchanting the land and you control the land.
Yes.
I think there was a game that we played a couple weeks ago where I knocked you out of the game, Evan, and it had been enchanting your commander or a combo piece or something like that. And I needed that 1 extra power, and I was like, shoot, I knocked Evan out. It's going to knock down Catilda's power. But no, it's still on the battlefield because it's enchanting a land that I control to exile a creature an opponent controls.
It doesn't matter.
Cool.
Yeah, it doesn't hold on to that thing.
Very unique interaction. Not a lot of cards do that.
Yeah, it just fizzles away in exile.
Yeah, I think there's another one in white. I think Chain to the Rocks does the same thing, but it's enchant mountain you control.
Well, there was a spirit you just put in the deck like just a few weeks ago. That's like when it when you can tap a creature on every go around if it has delirium. Right? Is that it? What it is? That's the tappy guy.
Oh, Topplegeist?
Yes, Topplegeist.
Oh, Topplegeist. 1
spirit.
white, 1/1 flying. When Topplegeist enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. Delirium, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, tap target creature that player controls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning of each upkeep?
Yeah, each upkeep. It turns in. It goes from like an ETB effect into no, this is going to happen on each upkeep, and it's relevant.
Yeah, it's relevant.
It comes up.
Yeah, it's a spirit.
Yeah,
it's a spirit. It's a stacks piece. It does both.
And
it does everything.
I will say, like, the value of white and like life gain and stuff. Life becomes way more critical when you're playing stacks.
Yes.
Like having a little life gain, just like even incidental, like, oh my goodness, does it help? Because it comes down to combat a lot of the time. Like, it really does come down to these kind of like last ditch swings.
A lot of people are throwing their haymakers, and if they're missing and they're not winning the game off of like doubling down, then the stacks player is going to remain and have the highest life total because they've been sitting there the whole game punching you while you try to get greedy and go for the win.
Yeah. No, I really think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Like, hit the person playing black because it's like they're using their life as a life. Or
like,
life
yeah,
as a
the
resource.
Adnaz, the microphones, whatever. Yeah, and then meanwhile, you're just gaining life, punching people.
Yeah.
Getting there.
Yep.
I think it's what I love about stacks the most, I would say, is just like it makes everything viable. Everything becomes a high power option if you want it to be. Like,
Yes.
your strategy can be a high power strategy if you play stacks.
Yeah. It's a STAX is a shell that can, just lift up any strategy you want to play, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like this,
Yes.
like Blood Moon in a mono red deck, like does work. Like,
Mono red prison.
Mono red prison, exactly right. Like you play the Dready deck, something like that, and it's just Blood Moon just wins you the game half the time.
Yeah, and so like Chris said, it's a way to like prop up strategies that are rather unconventional. It's why I love stacks. It's like, yeah, I talk about like stacks being like smaller pieces in decks or whatever, but once you start going to foils and stacks, you really got to prove you love them because they're expensive cards.
Yeah,
A
so
lot of them are
yeah.
like older too, and from like the
Yes.
early days when they,
Yeah, and so I love the way that like stacks can prop up strategies, and because they exist in every color, so like you can do it anywhere. There's a lot of stack pieces in colorless too. So like Winter Orb just
Oh yeah.
becomes
damping
great.
sphere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
damping sphere. It's just like there's stuff that exists out there that's going to be sitting on the battlefield. Like I love like Alter the Brood. It's not much of a stacks piece, but it is a value engine when I'm playing Xeris.
It feels stacksy sometimes when you're milling my deck and I don't have recursion.
Oh yeah, and I'm relieving you of your answers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that can be like a form of stacks.
Yeah,
even.
I think there's like a lot of different perspectives, different things that can be considered stacks. Like I think Wandering Archaic is a great stacks piece.
Definitely has a home in stacks.
Yeah,
Yes.
and colorless. Like
Yep.
how awesome any deck can be.
Yep.
with
I mean, that's why I loved it so much at release. I looked at it and I was like, this goes in every deck.
Wandering Archaic, by the way, is a creature from Strixhaven. I think it costs 5 colorless.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a avatar creature type. When an opponent casts an instant sorcery spell, you may, unless they pay 2 colorless mana, you may copy it, choosing
Yeah.
new targets.
Yeah, so it's pretty brutal. It helps you like do some crazy stuff in stacks wars. If somebody uses a removal piece against you, then you get an automatic one. If someone uses a removal piece not against you, then you still get another one. You can even send it at the person who used the removal.
Listen, anytime your opponent has to spend mana to keep you from doing something,
Yeah,
such as
always
Mystic
good.
Study,
Yep.
Smothering
Tithe, it's a good card.
Smothering Tithe, also a great stacks piece. I know people are like, it's ramp, it's a value engine. It's a stacks piece. It's a very good stacks
Yes,
piece.
it is.
It says if you don't pay 2 when you draw a card, your opponent wins the game.
Yeah, you're giving them mana to answer you, potentially. Like they tapped out and you are not paying for that too. So they get a treasure, and potentially that 1 mana is going to make all the difference when they shut you down.
Just because it is so impossible to pay for it every single time.
It is.
Especially when you need answers, you need to draw cards, right? Like that's pretty much what it comes down to.
I think it's a card that like puts its foot on your neck.
It
like,
really
it
is.
really makes you make tougher decisions, and so you make worse decisions
Yes.
because you're under pressure.
Yeah, and then that's the other part of like a 4-player game, and that like disparity is just, yeah, you might be able to take the turn off and kind of sit and develop on a resource that you've already laid out, but if another player that you pass to doesn't have that same luxury and they feel like they need to develop, and so they brainstorm because they
Yeah.
need to get some options. Well, you're like, well, now I took the turn off and you just got advantage and he just got ridiculous advantage.
He's got 3 cards, or he's
So-
got 3 treasures.
Yeah, so now you just feel like by being the right player, you feel like you are down below 2 other players.
Yeah.
That is just the 4-player conversation,
Yeah, a lot of stacks, at least the way I play it, is letting you guys make bad decisions because you're being put in a bad position
Yep.
without good options.
Yeah.
And I don't have to choose. I don't have to do anything. I just have to let you choose among, your not good options. And I benefit from that in any way without expending any of my resources.
Yeah, Catilda oftentimes becomes the primary target because it's what's killing you, and it's not the target. Like it's everything around it that's like propping it up is like what you should be removing,
Right.
but you're forced to remove Catilda because you have no other choice. It's going to kill you if you don't.
Yeah, and like in our games, we only have so much removal. We do run removal, but there's so many things to be removed in a single game of Commander. It's just like the last thing I want to do is use like my hyper efficient removal spell on a Catilda.
Yeah, there have been
Like,
other
feels
channels.
bad.
There have been other channels talking about like how much widespread removal should you play in your decks, and how much target removal should you play in your decks. And it's more and more as the game grows faster. It seems like you need more widespread removal than you ever thought you needed before.
You know what's great for that? Speaking of mono white, mono white. A lot of exile target permanent, destroy target permanent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does not care if it's a creature, artifact, enchantment.
White has gotten so much better.
Yep.
It's got value engines. It's got hyper efficient removal.
Because you're slowing the game down so much, you can actually like play those one-sided board wipes in white that like
Winds
break-
of Abandon is an
Yeah.
underrated card.
Settle the
Yes.
wreckage.
Yeah.
exactly settle
Yeah.
the wreckage. Winds of Abandon is insane.
All these things breaking parity.
yeah,
You know?
breaking parity. So
It's
you're
just-
sitting there long enough, and then they're having trouble like gaining any sort of value, and it's just like one-sided wipe. Goodbye.
Yeah, like and then
lock it in.
But with the stacks piece is still there, so it's like now you have to regain with all the pressure that you already had.
Yeah.
With less resources because you just played out your hand.
Yeah, just kiss your butt goodbye because you're not coming
Yeah.
back from that.
Yeah, and then but you still beat someone in the face until they're dead. So you have that you have that out. It's not make your players miserable and then we just sit there until the game
Yes.
is eventually over.
The ideal situation is you're not forcing people into a 2.5 hour slugfest where no one can win because you've played stacks
Yeah.
so heavily.
If you're going to play stacks, at least have like the courage to end games quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
once,
you have to have
once
the
you
strategy,
can.
like
yeah.
you said. Like it is not your main focus.
Yeah.
It's making your main focus work.
Well, I feel like we've talked a lot about my Catilda stacks deck. You
Yeah.
also have a Catilda stacks deck.
That's true. Actually, recently upgraded to a Jetmir stacks deck. But yes, I'm running both lists right now. It's pretty funny that we're both running two Catilda stacks decks. It is a humans deck. Speaking of humans and how good they are.
You're running a different Catilda.
What do you mean?
I'm running Catilda Dawnhawk
Yeah,
Spencer.
and I'm
You're-
running Catilda Dawnheart Prime. I hope that's
that's
the-
right. I think so.
Who knows?
You fact check me in the comments below.
yeah.
I don't care to look it up. So she's the one. She's a human shaman, I want to say, and she lets you
Yeah.
tap humans for the colors they are.
No, like tap for any color.
No, they have to tap for the colors that the human is.
No, I think it's tap for one of any color. Look it up.
If only there was a way we could figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, you get to tap your humans become mana dorks.
Yeah.
And so the kind of whole the other ability she has is you can pay 4 green white and tap Catilda, and you get to put a +1/+1 counter on everything.
Right.
A very, very efficiently costed value piece.
It's the creature's colors.
Oh no.
Sorry.
I wonder if the person who plays the deck would know something like that.
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah. Whatever.
That's what you get.
I'm glad
That's
that
what you
I get to
get.
eat crow on that. I love that button.
I was right though. So okay, so so pretty much the game plan was as much as you're not playing Rule of Law, that deck's whole goal was set up Rule of Law because Catilda is tapping everything and everything's tapping, right? So I was like, all right, Drum Bellower just came out and that untaps my creatures. Seaborn Muse does the same thing but on everything. So at the worst case scenario, I can each turn put a counter on everything if I can get to 6 mana with my
Right.
creatures, right? That's kind of the general concept is you guys, we're all casting one spell every turn. I'm just also beefing up some creatures in the process. Or if I have an instant, then I'm just using that mana there and I'm casting, maybe 2 spells of rotation now and kind of trying to bake parity there just by the sheer amount of mana I'm generating.
Yeah.
But it's not getting wasted because of Catilda's activated ability. So essentially what it comes down to is a human stacks beatdown deck. Instead of like Voltroning up a commander and just trying to make like one guy super, super beefy, it's obviously putting +1/+1 counters on all my creatures and then trying to get maybe an overrun effect because it's so easy to make human tokens, which then tap for mana until you're ready to kill somebody. Then you get like the Elish Norns or I love me a good Coat of Arms. Coat of Arms is like low key, like top 5 for me. Like I never see it come up, but oh my God, when I play it, it wins the game. It just,
Yeah.
like no Najila decks play it, and I just don't get it because half the time if you get stopped from your win, you have 9 warriors.
There aren't many decks at a high level that are playing tribal strategies, and there just happens to be one at the highest level that
I don't know. It's funny.
indirectly plays into tribal strategies, creates a lot of warriors.
It's easier to cast than Adnos.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better than
I mean,
Adnos,
Professional
probably not.
Facebreaker is a human warrior too, so it's like
Yeah.
it's pretty great if
I
you're
mean-
playing Najila and you want to like play Coat of Arms. It's
Turns out 5
Nasty.
color humans is good.
Yeah.
But I digress. Yeah. So the goal was I upgraded it to a Jetmir list, but still playing all the human strategies, and that allowed me to one, put in some other better cards, and then I put in some non-human. I'm starting to find that I really do like some key stacks pieces, some key hate pairs that are not humans, and I'm making that concession. Like Archon of Valor's Reach is just goated.
Yeah, ultimately you're trying to like thread a needle by playing stacks.
Yeah, and so now that I'm splashing red with Jetmir, it is still mostly a green white tech. I'm playing Winota and trying to do this Winota package, so I inherently need to have this balance in the deck of, which I now have to figure out, is having enough non-human creatures in my historically very human-heavy creature deck. But it's like we were saying, it's just a great engine for breaking parity on. And the issue I was having with the Catilda deck is that it had a hard time closing the game. It usually demonstrated a value engine pretty quickly because, you land an Adeline and people don't respect it for a turn, and then all of a sudden you land your 2-mana commander and then tap everything for 4 mana, cast something else, and you're just off to the races.
Yeah.
You throw a Lightning Greaves in there, and now you're, tapping everything that's coming in for an additional mana. It's just crazy. So once you demonstrate that, people are, fearful of that. They really want to start interacting. They really start want to poking their fingers in after that. So I don't really get much further than that.
Well, the way that you have your mana base build, it gets off the ground so quickly.
Immediately,
so
yeah.
And any removal that you might have in your opening hand, like you see someone getting off the ground quickly, you want to kick the legs out. And so that's another weakness of the deck, is it gets off like so quickly that
you're the first target when we're all holding up
literally.
removal.
Yeah,
The deck
exactly.
performs literally every single time, essentially.
Yes, it does. So when your commander hits the board and like all of your humans, like the beginning humans, are usually mana dorks or like something. So they get middled out
somewhere's
early.
like Hopeful Initiate is just such a stupid card.
Yeah.
Hopeful Initiate was the card that ruined your day with Catilda because it's the 1-drop human with training that you can remove 2 counters, pay 2, which, by the way, easy to generate when I'm untapping everything with Seedborn moves, and just destroy an artifact or enchantment. It's just a brutal card.
Because when they printed it, it sounds like a pretty far stretch. Like you got to like do something to get there, but the card's rising in value because it doesn't seem to be proving that it's that hard to get to 2+1/+1 counters just to remove
it's
something.
just like there's so much incidental +1/+1 counters. Like Catilda,
White will just throw white and green will both throw
green.
+1/+1 counters.
Exactly. Like I love me. What is that landfall enchantment?
Felidar Retreat.
Felidar Retreat. Such a goat card.
Hey, speaking of cats, I looked up Jetmir. It's a cat demon.
It's a cat demon.
So you get
How
the
cool
Winota
is
turn.
that?
It's pretty sick, and I will be buying the gilded foil. You
of
bet your
course.
ass.
Oh, that's a great looking art on that card.
It's super cool. So anyway, my long story short, that was the shortcoming with the deck, is the deck always performed, but it was also a little too scary. So I got beat down. So I leaned into stacks a little bit, and then now I find that building Jetmir, I get more value engines in the deck. So I'm not just like, once I'm blown out, I'm just jazz hands. I now get more value engines, and also Jetmir is just an excellent overrun effect. Like giving everything on his first ability, when you have 3 creatures proccing, you get +1/+0, and everything has vigilance, which is pretty awesome when you're tapping all your creatures for mana, right? You get to swing and then do that. And then when you have 4 or more creatures, you get +2/+0 as a total, and everything has trample.
Yeah.
And then the third one is double strike, I want to say.
Yes, +3.
And you need to have how many creatures? 9 creatures?
9.
Yeah.
9 creatures. Which in Catilda,
You're dropping dorks every turn.
literally never an issue.
Well, there were so many times like
Tokens everywhere.
When we went to the pre-release for New Capenna, like I got the Naya box, like the Jetmir box. I got a Jetmir, and let me tell you, dude, I got to 9 creatures in pre-release.
Terrifying.
So like people
Terrifying.
the card think it's bad, but yeah, you get into it and you're just like, oh, 9 creatures, not that hard to hit. You can, it can be a very aggressive like trample overrun type effect.
Yeah. I'm really pretty excited about Jetmir as a whole. I'm excited to see it at the game table this week.
Do you have that built?
I do, yeah. So we'll probably be talking about this in the future, but I'm an avid fan of proxies. So I have 4 proxy decks ready to go. Just testing lists.
I envy.
You.
Yeah, so...
Evan, you got any stacks going?
Oh, I mean, my strategy for like my high powers Zakama is just like stacks focus, and that's why I was saying like thread and a needle, because in order to prop up those strategies, you do have to like pick a line, and you got to stick to it. And there's a lot of things that are going to try and like step over your line and break your rhythm. So like that is the house of cards you're building with STAX.
So for you, that deck is, I mean, for all of us, it's really just like you're building the space for you to go off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you're breaking parity just to create the space for yourself.
Yeah, every Magic card, and this is how I see it, is like there is a base layer of the game, the fundamentals of how to play the game, and every card helps you break the rules a little bit. So like STAX, they break the rules statically. So as long as you can walk that path and slow other people down, it's just like that's the, I guess, ultimately how I see it. Like it's kind of like how I see Mario Kart as a Guitar Hero style game instead of like an actual racing game. I see it just like in that way. So
See the Matrix.
yeah. So when I'm building STAX, I'm actually I'm trying to like build a value engine, because like every other like mid-tier deck, I try to establish like permanents that are going to generate value throughout the game. And so if I can do that in basically when we're talking about like Damping Sphere, I know it's one of my most underrated, but it absolutely kills my favorite style of STAX value engine. And trademark that, STAX value engine. I'm like playing creature-based stacks in Zacama so that I can like get a ton of mana off Gaia's Cradle, because guess what? Zacama loves a lot of mana coming from his lands. So if I can like build a way to stop people about generating value, and then I'm also playing Sarah's Sanctum and a lot of ways to filter lands, because right now the deck is a food chain-based Zacama that is winning through a single land on the battlefield. Like that is how fast I want the deck to go. So the card, as long as you have in your lands, you have the access to white, green, and red when you fire off Food Chain, and you can go cast Zacama infinitely, and then you can untap all your lands infinitely. So as long as you can generate one of each of those colors of mana that doesn't care about the Food Chain.
Right, the creature-only mana.
Yeah, and then you have...
so Zacama essentially filters Food Chain mana into actual land mana.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And so like now you have infinite mana to destroy all non-land permanents, gain
infinite activations of everything on Zacama's wide swath of text.
Yeah.
Or, just anything in your hand that
so
you feel like casting.
Literally King of STAX. He's going to come in and he's just literally just going to say, you can't have anything. Like he's going to destroy all non-land permanents and wipe the board clean, and then he's going to win through a War Room, through a Bonder's Enclave, through like Den of the Bugbear.
Great,
absolutely
great card.
Love
I love that card is an outlet. I think it's so cool.
So like you get that infinite mana, and then you feed it into Den of the Bugbear infinite times, and it gets infinite instances of when it attacks, it creates a goblin that's also attacking. So it's another way to win that way. And so all my STAX like structures are built in that deck around stimulating that strategy. Using like Blind Obedience, because Blind Obedience is also
Great card.
a great card, and it's an outlet for the Zacama. So
It's somehow a STAX piece that is a storm outlet.
Yes.
At the same
I mean, it has Extort. It's great.
yeah, so
it's a storm outlet, which is amazing.
which is like great because I can play that on turn one and then go ahead through my game after slowing everybody else down, assemble the Food Chain combo, go ahead, get that infinite mana, and as long as I have an additional white and one land that it generates white or whatever, I can now infinitely filter that mana into Blind Obedience and win the game.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty great.
yeah, it's unbelievable how flexible that card is and how strong it is. And another underrated piece. Maybe I should have said that.
I don't think it's underrated. I think it's ubiquitous,
Very, very well
ubiquitous,
rated,
and
yeah.
it should be.
Yeah.
It's a great card,
Yeah.
and especially too because you can play it in. You only need white, but it has the reach to black if you have black mana in your deck as well, because the reminder text doesn't count. It's such
great.
a good card. It's a
Yeah.
perfect card.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, so that deck, I guess that's what I got going on for STAX, and I'm just really trying to like create a unique machine with STAX that's going to win games.
Well, I will say what I really like about your recent current build of the Zacama deck is how effective you're making the land tutors. So between Sylvan Scrying, Crop Rotation, and Elvish Reclaimer,
Yeah.
like not only is it like, yeah, you're grabbing these very unique, one-of-a-kind like outlets for your combo, like whether it's Den of the Bugbear or whatever, but it also gives you, before you're winning the game, because you don't really want things that are just like good in one instance, they're also grabbing, major value pieces in Sarah's Sanctum and Gaia's Cradle. I think that's really interesting,
Right.
because, that's getting you to the win versus winning you the game. And now any of those tutors are versatile in both aspects of the game.
Right. Yeah.
So-
They become lightning rods really quickly. Like,
Yeah.
the Crop Rotation is, I think if you're playing,
I think it's the best one.
if you're playing green at all, I think you can benefit from a Crop Rotation.
Probably. Yeah.
You sack a land, search for any land.
Any land, it
Yep.
comes in untapped.
And it's a single green mana, so you just sack the land that you tap.
Yeah,
fast.
like when I saw the
Get the best card.
I saw the borderless foil for like $14. I was just like, that is undervalued. Like right now, that card is just so good.
Very good
So,
card.
Yeah, so obviously an MVP in that deck, and like I again with stacks, it's like they're great, they're awesome, but sometimes they can be unhealthy for you too. Like there are times when I have played stacks to my own detriment. Like I non-bow.
There's
Like,
also some bad stacks too.
there are
Like,
bad stacks.
there's a difference.
Yeah. So like a good example of great stacks is like Grand Abolisher, but a bad example of that similar effect is like Price of Glory. You completely shut yourself off from interaction.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Docin of the Falling Leaf. You know, it's like it's a great card and you want to play it when you're going for the win. But like it shuts everybody else's interaction off.
Lier is a new effect like that too, where just
Yeah.
no spells can be countered, or like Docin is you can't cast spells on other people's turns. You know, Grand Abolisher spells can't be cast on your turn.
Yeah.
So, yeah, huge difference. Price of Glory is brutal. It's a back-breaking card. So
It's why like I had to give up on a few different stack strategies because I kept running into my own self, like shooting myself in the foot at every other turn. It's like
you got to find where you fit in, like where your deck's going, and
Yeah.
like stacks that don't get in the way of that.
right. So like I tried a Blood Moon variant in Zakama, it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
you have, so
you have a
many-
lot of funky lands.
You
in
need
that
the
deck.
lands.
Yeah.
You
well,
could-
well, I figured if I had food chain mana, like, and as long as I could generate a green in a basic land or whatever, or in any way, that Zakama's going to filter that land. I could destroy the Blood Moon. But the thing is that if I have to destroy a piece that's holding other people down, like, and I open up their blue mana for whatever reason, like, that's just a bad play.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like getting in your own way. And so, like, I did that a lot with, like, Yasharn. Like, I'm playing Dockside in the deck, of course. I'm playing Evolution lines because I need to get to a certain creature or a certain strategy. And then all of a sudden, Yasharn is sitting there in my way because he doesn't let me do any of that.
As
Yeah.
a general rule, you don't want to make your win con more complicated unless you have a very good reason.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Keep
Yeah.
it simple and then make it just very effective to get there.
Yeah, and that the only
Build
way
in
that
redundancies.
the only way I'd ever win with that strategy was by concession. People would be like, I just can't do anything. You know, it's just like,
You're like, well, I can cast a 9/9 and probably get it.
yeah, I could
get
probably
it there.
Yeah, I get you there in like 6 or 7 go around the table. But
I'll destroy everything you have on the table, and so
Yeah.
you can't do anything.
and
But
then I'm gonna have to attack each of you 3 times.
also, when you're talking about tournament play, like, they're getting pretty tight on time. Like some of these people
Yeah.
are like some of these tournaments are 75 minutes with no extra rounds. So you gotta have a game plan that's executing and winning within that time
Yeah,
frame.
and that's literally the steps I'm taking with upgrading that deck.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What are some stacks you kind of avoid, like gross stacks, unhealthy stacks? There's a few that
For me, it's all what is the deck that you're building around. Like there's
is it
so many.
justified.
Yeah, is it justified? There's so many stacks pieces that you could play. Like what's doing work, what can break parity for
Right.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could play Blood Moon in Zakama, right?
Right. Yeah, it could.
You could make it work, but what is it accomplishing?
Yeah, there's
You
a little
know?
bit of a workaround to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you just end up slowing yourself down instead of you slowing everybody else down.
Yeah, and
You might slow them down too, but
in
options. So many.
Catilda Voltron, like I'm not playing Rule of Law itself just because I have a better version of that because
Yeah.
it's stapled to a spirit.
And you have
You
enough
know?
other stacks. You don't need like that many rules.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I'm not playing Smuggler's Share, which is not really. It's stacksy a little in the same way that Smothering Tithe is stacksy, but it's a strictly worse card.
Yeah, it's a pretty terrible card. We tried it out the other day. We watched you struggle. In
Yeah,
multiple
I've
games with
been
it.
screaming from the mountaintops.
I mean, so I'm going to read the text. 1 white, 2 colorless enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under their control this turn. Which, if you're playing CEDH, that sounds like a gimme, right?
Right.
It
That
sounds
card
like it.
reads like you're generating endless value.
You're getting both
Yeah.
triggers every turn.
You land this and you win the game.
And, like,
is what this card
it's
reads.
going to
like.
get me to the dub, is
Now,
what it says.
in practice, in our pod, we play decently high-powered stuff. It has sat on the board for, I'm going to say, 30-plus player turns, and I've drawn 1 card.
It is
That is the
awful.
total value I've
It's
generated
pretty
off of this
hilarious.
card.
Yes.
It's pretty hilarious.
From the moment that card was spoiled, dude, I was on it. I was just like, I hate this. It
Yeah,
sucks.
I feel like the community recognized that. It was sitting at like $30 for a while.
And then
It's
it's like
down
one
to,
time.
let me look right
I was like-
now. Ooh, 20? That's up from 15.
It's still too
a
much.
couple weeks. Way too much.
It's
I
not
would
that
not.
good.
I think
In
I
a
took it.
mono white deck, he doesn't play.
Everyone I knew.
Yeah, in my mono white deck, I took it out, I think, and put in just another land. Like, not even a good land.
Yeah,
Dino Terramancer.
Anyone
Better
who would
card.
literally hear me out about anything about Magic. I think a couple of people at work who don't care about Magic fell prey to this, where I was just like, guys, don't fall for Smuggler's Share. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, don't do it. Like, don't go for it. It doesn't work the way you think it does.
I will say, I think it's less of a stacks piece, more of a value engine.
Oh, yeah.
But
I mean, it's making-
terrible.
It's
So
a Model
I-
T versus a
Yeah,
Ferrari.
I mean, if it's working, like as the card reads, it should be a stacks piece where it's making you make bad decisions in the
Right,
same way that
that's
Smother and
fair.
Tithe makes you make bad decisions.
You're like, maybe I
But
don't.
except it's not forcing you into any hard choices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too soft on pretty much all fronts.
it
Yeah.
says, if you're playing the game really well, I'm going to get something off that.
yeah, if
Yeah.
you're winning, I will win. I will lose a little less.
Yeah,
is what it
I will win
reads.
slower than you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. I was thinking like, kind of like the winter orby kind of things and stuff like that. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I don't.
Well,
think
for me,
there's-
Winter Orb is another thing where I have a spirit with that effect
do,
staple
you
to
do.
it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I don't think there actually is really necessarily like a negative bad stacks piece as long as you can justify it. I think that's a very good point because like Winter Orb in a lot of decks, I see people play it and just don't break parity on it, don't do anything about it, and you're like, you just really wanted to play that, huh? But I know some people will groan, but Urza, Lord High Artificer, breaks parity on that in such a beautiful way, and so does the Galazeth, right? You know, the Prismari Dragon, he taps them for colors too.
Even the new Gruul commander. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, that's true. The new
yeah.
Gruul
Malira?
Malira.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I don't feel bad in that game because you're clearly taking advantage of it. It is a strategy you've built into the deck. You have a clear way you're trying to win.
You're
And
going to win in like 3 or 4 turns.
And you're
like,
gonna get there.
at max.
Right. If you're just playing it and you're like, all right, that just sits there now. Deal with it.
Yeah, I'm also only going to untap 1 land.
I might only play one game with you. Yeah. I'm just gonna like bash my face.
I'll be like, I got somewhere to be.
Yeah. But yeah, I really agree with that sentiment. It's just like, I don't really think there is bad stacks. It's just like, one, make sure your pods show with it. If you guys are too, like, not too casual, but if you guys are at a casual level to where you don't feel like that's necessary and you don't feel like there's this big pressure from decks going a little too fast, generating these value engines, getting closer to the win than you.
Yes.
Yeah,
have to worry
if you're
about it.
all playing like power level 5 decks
Yeah.
or something, you don't need it.
No, but if
But
you're
if
getting a
there's
7
someone
range,
threatening a
higher
turn
power-
1 win in your pod,
Yeah, I mean,
or you know what I mean?
yeah, turn like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
even like
if there's fast decks, if
you're
everyone's
getting-
there trying to win, you
Yeah.
need a regulator on it.
Yes.
even if you're
You know?
just dropping value engines a turn before their CMC dictates you should be, like if you're turn 2ing a heuristic study, there's probably a good chance stack should be in that deck too,
Right.
or in that game.
Yeah. It's always important to pay your taxes on these things too. Like if Heuristic Study comes out, you have to contribute to it. You have to pay the 1, and that is putting even more pressure on you because you can't even play the game.
Yeah, I mean it's not just like it's never just yes or no. Sometimes it's like they've garnered enough value, so you're always constantly weighing. It's like what Ritter's saying is making a bad decision because it's like every time I feel like you are making a new decision. It's just like, all right, how much value have you gotten now on Heuristic Study versus what am I getting off of casting this spell?
Right. You're
Or-
making an off-balance decision.
Yeah, or what am I getting out of tapping out and not casting the next spell because I'm paying for Heuristic Study? So yeah, it's just putting people in those sticky situations is totally a very viable stack strategy that I've never even thought of because it doesn't read it on the card, right? It's just like this mental space of making people do something they don't want to do, and they're probably going to make the wrong decision.
Yeah, another example of like a bad piece of stacks that doesn't think it does what you think it does is Viridian Revel. I've played it a few times, and I've seen it in lists at higher power. It just does not do what you think it's going to do for you.
The artifact goes to the graveyard, draw a
Yeah,
card.
yeah. If an artifact an opponent controls hits the graveyard, you're going to draw a card, and that sounds like an incredible value engine because like people are just doing that off. Treasures are so popular, so it's just happening naturally as you flow through the game, and that just is not the case with that card because they will play around it and like
You're giving the opponent the option to, do I give my opponent something for free,
yes.
or do I just go do something else?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm
It's too
gonna,
easy
I'm
of
gonna
an
do something
option
else.
to
You're
do
actually
something
not
else.
putting a lot of pressure on them at all.
Yeah. Whereas with like with Smothering Tithe, you don't have the choice of if you're going to draw a card for the turn.
Yeah, and
you know?
it gets so painful. Like, do I tap 2 mana to allow you to not get a treasure, or are we going to go around the table and you're going to have 3 extra mana by the time you untap?
Yeah, in power level, right between those two, I think, is somewhere where like Wandering Archaic lies, because it is like banking on your opponents doing something, and you hope that that thing is like common enough,
Right.
like
Casting an instant or sorcery.
yeah, you know, and that you are going to be able to benefit off of that.
Yeah.
You know, like
That is right in the middle.
Smothering Tithe, no option. Like
Yeah.
Viridian Revel, pretty easy to dance around. Wandering Archaic, a little bit harder to dance around.
Yeah, there are some games where Wandering Archaic just doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But there are some games where Wandering Archaic does everything.
It does a lot.
Does a lot.
For 5 mana, it better.
Yeah, but like,
right.
okay, so like if you're getting, again, into the more competitive sense and stuff like that, even like the 7s where we play, like, removal is everywhere. Counterspells are there. Like, you know, it makes all of those decisions very, very sticky. People will tap out. Like, I had one time, and someone Court of Calling and tapped everything they had, and they completely forgot I had it. And I was like, do I also get to tutor for a 5-drop creature and put it on the battlefield?
Yes, you do.
And he's like, oh shit, I guess so.
Yeah, I even think that it is a great deterring agent to ad nauseam players, because if like you're really stretching it thin trying to get to ad nauseam, and you're spending everything you got to do it, right? If you don't have the 2 to pay for a Wandering Archaic, you get the ad nauseam before them, and so you're going to pick up half your library and have an answer for before theirs even goes off, and you're going to counter it. Like, it is such a deterrent, like, to high power games, that people have a tough time getting around it. That's why I was so high on it right away. I thought like spells, instants,
it is good,
sorceries,
and it's colorless, so you can fit it in any deck.
a weird form of magecraft, but it's
The backside of the card has limited relevance too. For 3 mana, everyone looks at the top 5 cards of their deck and chooses a CMC 1, 2, and 3 card, puts it in their hand. Is that right?
They get a land or something out of it.
something like that.
Yeah, they look at the top 3.
Everybody gets some value.
Yeah, I think everyone looks at the top 3, and then they get to choose a land, and and then they gain life or something like that.
Okay. Well, clearly we never cast that side of the card.
No,
But you could.
But you could.
If you wanted to.
Having that versatility.
Read the cards.
In a colorless.
See what they do.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally, it's just like, it never hurts to like know every aspect of it, because it'll come up. There's this 4-player game has so many corner cases that everything will be relevant at some point. Last, I know we're kind of running late on time right here. I just want to throw two things out, 2 STAX pieces, because they're very different than anything we've talked about.
Yeah.
2 black creatures, Opposition Agent and Dothy Voidwalker.
Love them. 2
incredible STAX pieces.
Yes.
If you have black mana in your commander deck, play them both.
Play them both.
Regardless of whether you're going to, pair Opposition Agent with Marlin for...
You could do that.
For a combo.
Even like a Wishclaw Talisman, because you have to, after you tutor, you have to give it off. Tutoring for a Opposition Agent, very viable line.
It's funny how many cards get lost underneath a Dothy Voidwalker, too.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, what made me think of it is you were talking about, yes, if, someone casts an ad nauseam into a Wandering Archaic and they can't pay the 2, you get to resolve it first.
Yeah.
Well, anything that happens with a Dothy Voidwalker, yes, okay, so spell will resolve, right? But things will get countered, on the stack, and those go to the graveyard while still being on the stack. But they'll not, instead of go to the graveyard, they'll get exiled under Dothy. You get all these new interaction points with Dothy. So not only people, like if you early turn it, I'll burn a Jeweled Lotus into it because I was planning on that turn 2 commander, right? So now you have a Jeweled Lotus.
Yeah, if you're sitting there trying to defend someone from winning the game while someone, like the 3rd player, has a Dothy Voidwalker, you're just feeding them.
Yeah.
Dothy Voidwalker is a strictly better Praetor's Grasp.
Yeah, it does.
It has some different
options.
it has different applications, because one, you do have to rely on people's stuff going to the graveyard. But where Praetor's Grasp, you get that precision, I suppose. But
yeah, Praetor's Grasp can definitely, like, when it resolves, knock someone out of the game completely. Like if you're playing against, let's say Rocco, you're at a high power table, you're playing against a Kiki Jiki combo. Guess what? That's probably their only line.
Yeah,
you just take the Kiki and the game's over.
Or like Thassa's Oracle in most decks. Like if you're playing against like a Greedy Grixis deck, a Blue Farm deck, whatever. Oh yeah, I'll just go grab your Thoracle, because I probably also have the cards that win with Thoracle, right? So I'll just grab it. You can't cast it, and then I'll just cast it whenever I see fit.
Yeah, it's pretty cool mono black tech.
Yeah, no, it is a good card for sure.
Yep.
Sweet, yeah. Those are the last 2 I should have thrown out there. I play him in most of my Grixis lists. Dothy is just unparalleled in value. There's too many words on that 2-drop card.
Listen, I mean, it's worth looking at all the text. It has Shadow, it's a 3/2, so you can just unless they have another thought who has shadow.
It's a 3/2 with shadow. So
You can hit someone for 3 every
Great
turn.
Timna decks, like inherently just beautifully built for Timna.
Yep, it's a rogue. There's rogue synergies.
Party.
If you're playing party,
Why not?
rogues themselves are a playable
Rogues,
tribe at lower power levels, and then of course the text that we were talking about. And even if you're not going to grab that card for your own use, not letting that card go to their graveyard.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, if
Turns off Savine's Reclamation,
100%,
for example.
Yes, good shout. Like, how many cards do we play that just say that alone? Like Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage.
Oh, Rest in Peace. That's a Stacks piece I don't play.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I want my graveyard in Mono White Spirits.
Yeah,
So,
totally fair. But like Dothy says that, plus you get the card. It is almost incidental Rest in Peace value for the same mana.
Yeah, at the core of it, when they designed it, they said you're going to have to choose between hitting someone for 3 unblockable damage or casting a spell that was cast previously this turn,
Right.
For free without paying its mana cost.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that's
like-
the trade-off you get with this card.
Maybe good in 1v1 draft,
I
but
think that it could have maybe been 2 more mana for that effect.
yeah,
you know,
it's
like-
very strong.
Still
Should've
one
been
of the
foreground.
lower powered cards in Modern Horizon 2. Somehow.
Shout out.
Unbelievable.
All right, guys. Do you guys have anything else to add to this conversation on Stacks and clearly how much we love it? We are Stacks fans.
And I think we could talk all day about it.
all day about it, and I'm sure there'll be more episodes in the future about it. If you guys have any thoughts, if there's any Stacks cards that you love that we did not mention, put it down in the comments below. I'd love to take a look at those.
If you have unconventional Stacks strategies, especially
like how are you breaking parity on it?
Yeah.
Like, show me something cool.
If you randomly have like a mono blue creature based Stacks deck that's like those like moon wizards from Kamigawa or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
somehow
Yeah,
I don't know.
Folk.
I want to know about it.
yeah, give me something
Yeah.
weird. Give me something weird and spicy. Weird Stacks.
Yeah, we're always looking into that. And honestly, share the deck list with us too, because we'll go in and we'll play through it because it's so much fun to
Yeah.
play test hands.
Yeah, I love testing out other people's decks.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the MoxStars podcast. Wow, time really flies.
Yeah.
This was our episode on Stacks, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future. If you guys have any topics that you want to hear us discuss, also throw that down in the comments down below. Yeah, all of our socials are also down there. Everything is linked. So, yeah, follow us, subscribe for more. Follow us on this awesome magic journey.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Deuces.
Goodbye.